How you doing, Kai?
I'm doing good.
It's good to see
I'm
you.
used to that going on because of my nonprofit, and I was like, I want to make sure I'm not recording this man on my end. Also, that's why my name in the corner is Climate for Change and not Kai.
It's fine. It doesn't bother me. It's a good reminder for the people
I
of
know,
of
right?
what you're up to. Yeah, how you been?
I'm good. Um, I wish I had a better excuse for being late. I was just talking to my mom on the phone for too long, and I lost track of time.
That's a valid excuse. How's your mom doing?
My mom's doing pretty well. I think she's headed into work, and so she was like just like telling me what was going on with her day. I don't know. I talk to my mom like 7 times a day. So it's like not it's uncommon. It's just
Uh-huh.
to pick up the phone, talk about anything random. So
Right on. Nice, man. Well, it's good to see you again. I'm excited to catch up with you. It's been a while since our last conversation.
yeah, it has been a while. I
A couple
guess
years.
what the pandemic. It feels like literally a world away.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited. I've got a few things I want to dive into with you today. Life of Villains. I'm really excited to hear about that. And then I want to hear about your trip to Jamaica. And I want to hear what's going on with Climbing for Change. I know you're always doing really good stuff in the world with that. But first off, I was just looking at your Instagram, and one of your most recent posts said that it's about time to lace up your shoes and go try your next project. And looks like you're maybe headed back out to the hurricane. So tell me about your upcoming trip. Are you training for something right now? You got a trip coming up soon?
I might be. No, I'm kidding. But I usually don't like to name my projects until I'm at least close enough to think that it's feasible. So
Mm,
I won't name it yet, but I
yeah.
will say that if I'm able to get some good work on it, then it would definitely be like the hardest thing I've done by a long shot.
Okay.
So I'm pretty excited about it. It's gonna be really fun. And I
Nice.
think I head out to start working on it like literally this weekend. So it should be exciting.
Hell yeah. Is this something yeah, I'm not trying to squeeze the details out of you, but is this something you've tried before or is this something new?
Not quite. So I put a few tries into it a couple months ago, but I didn't like actually get to like work it because I just I balance a lot of hats in life. And so I'll set aside a time and do a project, and then it's like, okay, well now I got to go back and do this thing for Climate for Change, or now I have to do this thing for I don't know, just as Kai Lightner. Like I feel like I balance some things, so it's like my schedule can get a little bit tight, and so
Yeah.
I just didn't get to spend as much time on it in the fall that I wanted to. But I'm gonna get pretty much a whole month to try it
Nice.
in February, so I'm pretty excited.
It's cool to hear that because I've had the thought with you, like, what could this man do if he actually had like a month or, a long period of time to try some of these projects? Because like Life of Villains, it's 9A, like quite a few people have done it at this point, but at the same time, like you're doing these things in like a week or two. You don't have very much time on these trips, and it's just so impressive that you can climb one of the hardest routes in the country in a handful of climbing days like that. So I'm really excited to see what you can do if you give yourself a month. Yeah, that'll be really fun to follow along. Can I ask you,
Yeah.
why is it important to you to kind of keep your cards close to your chest? Is it pressure? Is it just like, once it's out there, people know, and that feels like external pressure for you, or is it something else?
I think it's more so like self-preservation because for me, it's like I really enjoy the process of like pushing myself to my limits and like training for something. I mean, it's literally the structure of my life since I was a kid, and so for me, it's never really been about placing it all out there because I feel like once I um like speak it out to the world, and it's like okay, like now it's like okay, I have to do it now, you know.
Mm,
Whereas to me, it's like I like to keep things at my own pace so that I don't put too much pressure even on myself. And then, it gets to the point where like something could happen, anything could happen with these projects. But I just like to kind of like, build it up for myself before I start announcing it to other people.
hmm.
Kind of. That makes any sense.
Yeah, it
It's
does.
like even with the Life of Villains, it's like I didn't tell anybody that I was training for anything at all, actually. I just was like, okay, like this is the project that I named. I think it's doable. Let me start training for it. like structured it out, and then I went out for the period. And once I thought it was doable, then I started talking about it because it's like I don't like to, count my eggs before they hatch, as they
Mm,
say.
right, right, totally. You said on Instagram that this route was an absolute emotional roller coaster. Can you tell me about that? That definitely piqued my curiosity.
Yeah, I think for me, it's so different doing outdoor projecting than it is doing competitions, which is what I've been most used to in my life, even though I haven't really done them consistently in a while. But in competition, it's just like you train, you structure a program, and then it's your responsibility to show up on competition day with all the elements in line, physically, mentally, emotionally, and everything is typically consistent for everyone else. And so if you're fit enough and prepared enough, you can usually somewhat predict how well you're going to do on the day. But when you go outdoor climbing, there's so many factors that are just not in your control. I mean, you have the weather, humidity, like the rock could break, like and change the composition of the route. And like literally like all those things happened on Life of Villains. And so it was frustrating going there in a weekend being like, okay, like I'm ready to go in for the kill, like I'm ready to send. And then everything's falling apart, like the conditions change like 180 and the climb just feels unrecognizable. And it's like this frustrating process of like, I can handle when I'm not ready. But when everything else is hindering the process, it was like a new level of frustration that like I don't really think I ever really had to process like that before. Like it was like maddening. Like it's funny, like you could ask Ben, like the day before I sent, I came off the climb and I just felt like deranged. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like I have to do this route. Like and so I was really glad that I was kind of able to like tap into that zone that I haven't really felt in a really long time. Like that level of like, connectiveness where like mentally you're on, physically you're on. It's like it almost feels like impossible for it not to happen.
Mm.
Like that's like a full body connection and like I haven't really felt since I was competing. So it felt good to tap into that once again.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool. And yeah, Ben Hanna, for people that didn't pick that up, was your climbing partner on that one. Looks like you guys had a really good time out there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've known Ben like my whole life since we were kids and he had a purple mohawk. So it was cool to reconnect with Ben to do this route.
Yeah, he's always got something rad going on with his hair. That guy
Yeah, I
seems like
know.
he knows
It
how to.
depends on how he feels on the day.
Right on. Yeah, I respect that. That's cool. You also wrote, this is from a different post. After all these years, I had almost given up on myself. I'd almost completely given up on myself. Completing Life of Villains means more to me than just sending a route. It represents a personal and psychological win I needed for myself. And then, so crazy, man. You talked about like 9 years ago, you sent your first 514D Aravea in Spain, and the picture of you on Life of Villains, and then the next slide is the picture of you at 15 years old climbing Aravea, and it's just like, wow, look at that transformation and how. I mean, this is like a story that we talked about in our last podcast, and it's something that I've talked about in my own personal journey is kind of having this body transformation. Like there was me when I lived at Smith Rock and weighed 140 pounds and was trying to climb 514. And then there's me now at 170 pounds climbing, in Waco and trying to climb hard boulders and stuff. And I feel better, but it has been like having to relearn how to climb in a different make and model, like a different body. And it must be so empowering and gratifying to have climbed a route that's as hard as you've ever climbed in this body. Because I know you had, it sounds like you had some hangups around that. Like you didn't believe that that would ever be possible the way you look now. I mean, like that photo of you, one of the posts about Life of Villains, you're like, kind of doing that roll through move, you're doing like a drop knee and kind of rolling through, and you're just like, you look like LeBron James. You've got the short hair and the beard. You just look freaking jacked. It's just like, dude, this guy could play in the NBA and he's one of the best rock climbers in the country. That is pretty sick. It's something we haven't seen before. So, how did that part of it feel? Tell me a little bit more about that feeling of almost having completely given up on yourself and what this route meant to you on that deeper level.
Um, yeah. That's a lot. Um, well, I think for me, and also like a general misconception, I think it's the fact that like, I mean, to, I guess, pick apart, how my body climbs in the sport at a different size isn't really a talking point for even like just body image issues. Like I've never thought that I wasn't fit or I didn't, or any of those things like negative on myself. It's just that statistically, the mold of the sport has always been within a certain height range, within, a certain weight goal. And it's so common in climbing that it's like once you leave that, ideal Goldilocks zone almost, it's like almost like not only just like mechanically perhaps a bit harder, but also, people just don't believe that it's possible to do hard things at those sizes. And so, and at a young age, it was very clear that I was going to be tall, that I was going to have a stockier build. I mean, there's not a single man on my mom or my dad's side of the family that stands like under 6 feet, really like 6'2". My dad's like 6'9". And
Wow.
so it's like I was gonna be tall. I was gonna be muscular. It's just what it was gonna be. But I think as a kid, it was really hard to rationalize, like having to constantly switch, my styles of climbing and, my approach to climbing and even my approach to training because it all changes. I feel like as like I was, exponentially growing, it was like there's just certain training techniques that didn't work for me anymore. And like, I couldn't just walk into the gym and just hammer out the training for 4 or 5 hours anymore and then walk out the gym. It was like, no, like I get injured. Like I have to do a lot more prep and I have to be a lot more cognizant of my tendons and my joints and everything. And I had a lot of random injuries in the middle of my growing process just because it was like everything is elongating, everything's stretching much more than my peers. And so I had to really slow down. And as someone who, for me, like I'm such a perfectionist. Like I'm always just like everything has to be right, everything has to be perfect. Like the switch up of things when they're not in my control, it like really, really bothers me. And so
Mm.
it was really hard mentally to process that. But I think for me, I just had to come to a realization eventually that it's like I cannot worry about the things that I cannot control.
Mm.
I have to take things day by day. I have to structure my own process based on my own needs. And if it ends up being enough, that's fine. If it ends up not being enough, that's also fine. Because at the end of the day, climbing hard routes is not life or death. Like the world keeps spinning. The work that I do with Climate for Change will continue on. And I think I found fulfillment in other outlets of the sport in which it's one of those things where like climbing hard is like, fulfilling for me personally, perhaps, but it's not the end all be all.
Mm.
And so by the time I, had gone out to Life of Villains, I just felt like physically I was ready, but also like mentally I was ready for the process to be like, it's okay if things don't work out. And luckily they did, but also it would have been fine if they didn't. It's just you gotta go with the flow and take things, day by day, training days, exercise by exercise and just see how you feel.
Yeah, that's such a cool mindset and such a healthy mindset. Yeah, I really really like that. Um, I'm curious, kind of talking about like how your approach to climbing has shifted over time, how you've adapted to being taller, being more muscular. I remember in our first conversation, you talked about the importance of flexibility, and you really lean into flexibility and drop knees to get you in these, sometimes small boxes, different positions and stuff. You also talked about lowering your volume. You can't do as much as you used to do. You have to be more cognizant of that. Is there anything else? Like, has anything else really helped? Any other changes in your approach that have made a big difference for you or allowed you to adapt to your body? Because I remember for me, I came out of Smith Rock and started traveling, and I gained about 30 pounds in like a year. And it was all muscle. I just let myself kind of like grow into the body that I was supposed to be the whole time. You know what I mean? And I felt stronger in a lot of ways kind of right away, but it took a few years for my joints and connective tissue and things like that to kind of catch up. It's like imagine just putting on a 30-pound weight vest and trying not to get injured and climbing all the time. Like it was kind of a rough transition for a while, but but it did happen eventually. I'm wondering if I could have done it quicker if I'd been a little smarter. But any other changes to your kind of general approach or training that have been positive and kind of helped you adapt to the body that you have now?
The first thing I could say is that I think one of the biggest keys is not rushing the process.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to like, yeah, again, like take your program based on what you can handle in that moment. And to be honest, I mean, for anyone, every day that changes a little, you know, depending on, excuse me, depending on a lot of factors, like, you know, did you get enough sleep that day, or are you sore, or like how your joints and tendons are feeling? I feel like this is general idea that you have to push yourself to the limit every single practice, every day. And technically that's true, but what that limit is each day isn't the same.
Mm.
Like what the level you were able to push yourself the day before is not the same level perhaps you can push yourself the next day. And I feel like the problem is that when you play too close to that line, you risk injuring yourself to a point where you stopped any gains you could have made because you pushed yourself on a day that you weren't ready for that. And so I think for me, it's like I have no qualms anymore. Like when I was a kid, like, everything on the program has to get done as scheduled. There are no exceptions. I cannot leave the gym. It would keep me up at night if something was missing.
Wow.
And now I'm kind of just like I'm not feeling that great. Or, my fingers are feeling a little creaky and I just don't feel like pushing it today. Like it's okay to cut things short and transition to something else. Like, I can't do the hangboarding that I plan on doing. So let me go do some core. Or, let me do like another exercise that I feel like I can't handle that day. It's just, adapting to your capabilities like in the moment.
Mm.
I think that was very helpful. Um, I feel another thing that was really helpful for me was I don't know if this is really like helpful, like a tip that's like tangible, but I noticed that there's just a lot of things, a lot of skills that I picked up over the years uh, that kind of came innately that I didn't even realize that I did because my style of climbing is pretty technical. Like I've always been very aware of like my feet and like my flexibility and mobility and like body awareness. And so I think that as I grew, I just started to do little things that were different, like in utilizing heel hooks more. And sometimes like most people, especially like they teach you that the techniques of how to elongate yourself, like how to make yourself taller on the wall so you reach holes. But I feel like I also have to teach myself how to be smaller on the walls because sometimes moves don't require all of my length, to get to the next hold. Like sometimes I have to put myself in a smaller box to do dynamic movements, which sounds counterintuitive, but it's just sometimes it's required.
Mm.
So I just feel like, yeah, like I just had to adapt like the technical skills that I use in my arsenal to do roots. And like I don't even know if there was really like a moment where it's like this has to change. It was just kind of natural.
Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Yeah, that's great. How'd it feel to send Life of Villains? Did you know you were going to do it that day? Did you know it when you were starting to climb? Like you felt different? Was it a surprise? Did you feel like you climbed it perfectly? How'd it go and how'd it feel?
I feel so bad for Ben. So what happened was the day before, I sent it had been after a week of it just being like awful conditions, like foggy, 80% humidity. It was so warm. It was like we were so demoralized. And then the day before I sent it, the weather just like opened up, the heavens opened, it dropped from like 80% humidity to like 20. It was wind. It was like 50 degrees out there. Everything felt crisp. And I was just like, okay, like I'm gonna go up and try and see what happens. So I went up to try the route and I was feeling really good. And as I was going through the crux, one of the little nuggets that was on one of the crux holes just broke. And I was like, oh, that's terrible. Like I don't know what to do now. So I was like, okay, like lower me down a little bit. I'm gonna do some of the moves through the crux and like see how it goes. So I lowered down like a few moves. And for anyone who doesn't know the climb, like it's a beginning part that's maybe like 13A and then a big jug rest. And then after that jug rest is like the meat of the climb. And so I went back to the jug rest to see if I could actually do the moves anymore, did the moves, and then did the rest of the route all the way to the chains. And I remember going again to the chains and like taking, and Ben was like, You just did the route. And I was like, I know, but I didn't do the route. And that's the problem. And so I rested, went to go up to try the route again, and I felt going to the last hold, and I just didn't have the energy to try it again, and I was pissed. I was so mad, and I was like, I can't leave. It was the last day of the trip. I was supposed to be going home, but I was like, I can't leave. Like, I have to do this route. So I begged him to let me stay overnight at a hotel. And then that morning, I hiked up, I did my warm up, I went to Life of Villains, and I did it first try. And luckily, when I clipped those chains, I was like, okay, we can go home now. Like I'm satisfied now.
Mm,
But I think it was just one of those things where I don't know, like I knew it had to happen at that moment if it was going to happen at all on that trip before Thanksgiving. And so I had to just lock in. And it was like a level of, you know, I don't know if it's flow state, but it was one of those things where it's like I didn't the environment didn't all come together organically, but like I made it happen. Like it was like this has to happen now, no matter what's going on, and I don't have a choice. So I got to commit and get it done. And so it was like one of those mental states I haven't tapped into since I was in competitions. Where like if I'm a little off, so what? Like it's I'm gonna have to just correct it in the moment. And luckily, everything just came together. And I feel like once I clipped the chains, it was almost like my mental like kind of cleared from that state, and I was like, wow, like I did it. Like not only did I do decline, but I was able to put myself in a mental space where success was the only option, and I was able to get it done. So I don't know, like this felt like a really like cool moment, full circle.
mm. Yeah, that
I don't know. I don't know if I explained that well.
you did. You did. No, that makes a lot of sense. That does sound like that exact competition mindset that you've been honing over, most of your career. Just do or die. Like you get one shot, you got to do it at this moment. Yeah, that's really cool. Did breaking the hold change the route? Did it change the crux or make it harder or?
I think that well, it depends. I think that for me, it didn't change it that much. It made the whole feel a little less comfortable. But I had that route so dialed at that point that it just didn't matter. I think, however, like if you're a bit well, not a bit, if you're shorter than me, then it could make it a little bit difficult because for shorter people, the move is a bit further, a little more distance, and so having something comfortable to lurch from could make the difference in difficulty. So I think that it could make a difference, but for me personally, it did not.
Gotcha. Well, congrats again, man. Yeah. Very happy that worked out for you, and I'm excited to hear about the next one. Hopefully hopefully in a month or two when it's close and you feel like you can do it, we'll all hear what it is and we'll be rooting for you.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's gonna be really fun.
Tell me about your trip to Jamaica. How did that come about?
How did that come about? Well, it started and ended really with my friend Gaz. Gaz was one of the producers. Well, not one of really that's like the person leading the project in Jamaica in terms of like the film project and like bringing all the resources together. Because I don't even want to like reduce his title to just being a filmmaker. I mean, that man like stepped into this community and like really helped bring this project together in terms of like the wall and like providing resources. And once that was happening, he realized how cool of a story it would be and how telling the story could bring so much attention and resources to this country that's trying to build themselves up in the sport. And so he wanted to create a project from the work that he was doing there. And so he called me on the phone uh randomly in the fall, and he was like, hi, I have this really cool project, this really cool community, and I called you not because I want you to be a part of this project, but I kind of need you. And I was like, why do you need me? And basically it was saying that, this country is predominantly Black, and in spaces like that, like I'm well aware of, it's like climbing and outdoor sports really isn't like a thing. Like it's something that isn't recognized because it's usually seen as like a white man's sport, something that like doesn't touch within the culture of who we are. And I mean, and when people do those things, it feels like, you know, they're doing something bad or delinquent, or it's not
Mm,
it's not really associated with anything that's productive. And so he was like, we need somebody to inspire them that climbing can be the complete opposite.
Mm.
And you're the only example I can really think of. And I was like, okay, I guess I don't have a choice. I called my mom and I told her about it, and she was like, she was basically like, yeah, I don't think you have a choice either. So, a lot of things really had to come together perfectly for that project to happen. And all those elements came together really like in the last minute, the last hour. Like, I didn't really know if I was really flying to Jamaica until the end of November, beginning of December. And then I was on a flight to Jamaica by like December 9th.
Wow.
And then I was, you know, in the community, I bolted my first route, which was an interesting experience. And I did my first ascent. And I think the coolest part of that project was really just like being immersed in the community because Jamaica is such a beautiful country. Like I was telling this to guys the whole time I was there. I feel like being in Jamaica feels like back in 2014 when we discovered Instagram and like everybody wanted to turn the saturation on their photos up to the highest point because no one had ever used it before. Like like everything was so bright. Like all
Mm.
the colors were bright. It popped. Everything was the grass was just greener. The sky was bluer. The people were just more vibrant than like,
That's cool.
you know, I had ever really experienced. And I was just like, everything's just bright. People, place, crazy. And so it's almost like you can't not smile while being in Jamaica. It's such a really cool place in that regard. And so
Mm.
great time, delicious food, and the rock is actually quite good, like bullet strong, and there's so much of it. You just have to be able to withstand like 85-degree weather in the winter.
Whew.
That's all.
That's hot.
Yeah,
That's hot. That's
very hot.
that's cool though.
But we had a great time, and I think being able to build that wall in the National Training Center, it just all came together perfectly. It's like such a huge deal because no one would have touched rock climbing if it hadn't have been in a space that demanded respect. And that space is like where all the greats of Jamaica train, whether it's the Usain Bolts or the Shelley Ann Fraser Prices or all these people who are like legends in Jamaica. They all train in that stadium, and so to have a climbing wall in the stadium, it's like automatically valid. Like even the kids walking through, watching us build it, were like, "What is that? Like, what are you guys building?" And like, "When is it open? Like, when can we try it out?" And so it was like immediate interest where there literally wasn't any. Like climbing on at those crags, everybody who walked by watching us climb on the mountain was like, "No, no, no! Like that's a white man thing. Like I don't know what y'all are doing. Like that's weird." Like you know, but when it was in the stadium, it was like, "Oh, like, this is cool, like, this has to be something." It
Mm.
was like a immediate, like, difference in recognition and respect, and I think that goes a long way in establishing climbing as some form of, like, legitimate activity for people to do on the island, and since the wall has grown, the community has already started to grow over there in Jamaica, so, yeah, I don't know. It's just exciting. I could talk all day about it, like, I love working on that project.
That's so cool. Yeah, we didn't even explicitly say like what you guys did, but you went there to build Jamaica's first ever climbing wall, and you put it in the National Training Center, which, like you're saying, is where all these amazing athletes train. And was bolting routes and developing outdoor climbing part of the initial plan for the trip as well?
Um, Allegedly, they told me that it was going to happen, but I just assumed that if I didn't mention it, that it just would go away. Because I was like, I was, I, I just wasn't interested. To be completely honest,
That kind of
and not
tracks. Yeah.
because I mean I appreciate the art of bolting. I mean, it's needed. Like people have to be out there with the vision to see these climbs to build them in order for us to have a climbing community. Period. Like so much respect for it. But it's just never been a thing that I aspired to because I was like, that process, you were getting down and dirty, literally. And that is not my thing. And so I was like, the whole process just seems kind of messy and like,
Yeah.
a little like chaotic at times. And so I was just like, I'm good, I was like I can appreciate the art form, but I think it's also just from the perspective of a competition climber who only ever had time to do outdoor climbing, like on like spring breaks and stuff, it was just like I never fully immersed myself in that world enough to want to be a part of it from like top to bottom. And so doing that was odd. I got there and Gav's basically like, so I have your bolts and I have the drills and the hammer. And I was like, okay, like, I don't know who's using that, but like, great for you. He's like, no, this is for, he's like, no, this is for you. And like, he and Juan, who's one of the community leaders in Jamaica, like they were like, we're going to take you step by step. There's nothing to worry about. Like you can trust all the equipment that we're going to teach you. And I'm like, I believe them, but it was like a little nerve wracking. But once I actually got into it, I realized that it's not that bad. Like it actually isn't that bad of a process. It was just like, the stigma in my head was so strong that I just assumed that I was going to be miserable. And I wasn't actually.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like anything, right? It really depends on so many factors, like the set and setting. You've spent enough time in the hurricane and kind of, seen that place and felt the rock, that like that was a construction project. That was a lot of freaking work to clean that rock up and bolt those roots and stuff. And it just depends. It depends on the cliff, the quality of the rock, how much cleaning needs to be done and all that stuff. But did you enjoy it when it was all said and done? Is that something that you have any interest in doing more of now? Or was that like, cool, I scratched that itch and I don't need to ever do it again?
Well, I think I actually did enjoy it. But I think what made me enjoy it was like being able to see the line and like being inspired by what I was being like what was put in front of me and being like, oh, like okay, like that's what I want to bowl. And once I got excited about what I wanted to climb on, like the process felt worth it, like repelling and cleaning and drilling and everything. It was like it was a long process, but it was like I was excited to climb on the route. So I was like, I'm willing to do all this in order to get that done. And it was cool because like I kind of like walked out and they were just like, you can bolt anywhere and do anything. And I'm much more attracted to aesthetic lines than I am, trying to find like maybe the little holds or things that may fit my style or whatever. And so my first thought when I walked around is everyone was looking at the rocks that were going down the walkway, but I was like, I want to climb near the waterfall because that rock looks so cool. Like it's all the holes. It almost looks like a beehive. And this you have this beautiful waterfall that's going next to you. And I was just like, it's so peaceful because you have no choice, considering how loud the waterfall is, to be connected with yourself and with the rock. And I feel like that process is like, I don't know, like kind of why I got into the sport to begin with. And so I feel like I saw the line, thought it was beautiful, and I was like, that one. And so they taught me how to rappel the root. I drilled it out, and it ended up just feeling perfect.
Mm.
Like trypophobia was like I had to say like a really gratifying experience. Being able to like feel out the moves because I feel like another thing that was kind of scary is like, what if I bolt this line and it doesn't work? Like it's not climbable, like it's like there's too many gaps or or if I'm the only one tall enough to reach through the spaces that are empty, you know? But luckily everything worked out. And from the people who've tried it after me, they said it's a pretty enjoyable route as well. So I'm happy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Do you have any favorite memory or memories from the trip?
My favorite memory, the food. The food was so good. The oxtails, the beans and rice, the plantains. I love food, Steven. And so that was really a good memory. And I also would have to say, like, day one, like right before we got into the nitty-gritty of the climbing part of things, we took a day of sightseeing, and I didn't know what that would entail, but I mean, I was like, it's Jamaica. Everything has to be beautiful. And it was. It's like we took a boat ride to this like beach island on the coast of Kingston. And, when I talk about the people being lively, like everybody is just naturally friendly and giving. Like we like got to the beach and walked off, and there was immediately this man, you know, DJing with his own equipment that he brought there, like in this little like shack, and he was teaching everybody who walked by like how to do these TikTok dances that were popular in Jamaica. He was like trying to teach me, and I was like, I don't know, like I have two left feet, like I have rhythm, but that's about it. Like, so I'm gonna do my best. But it was so much fun. Like he had so much knowledge to give, and like everybody was just so nice, and it was such a beautiful experience. And also being able to do it with my mom, because I feel like
Mm.
it's so often that I've drug my mom all around the world to places that she didn't want to be. That she when we finally got to go to a Caribbean island, she was like, "Yes, a place I actually would want to go to, like a bucket list place for me." So I was like, "Honey, finally brought you to a beach, mama, I promise."
She's like, finally, I'm not in a dirty cave. This is amazing.
Yeah, she was so excited.
I love it. That's great. Very cool. What's going on with Climbing for Change?
Oh my gosh. Um, I feel like there's always something going on with Climbing for Change. Um, I think going into this year, I've kind of made the decision that for me the work has always been the most important. Like I have no problems with working with communities and structuring new programs, like consulting with people and like not posting about it on social media or anything because I was like that part of things like I've always done it in a way that wasn't public, and so, like, I just feel like, I didn't think anything of it, but I started to realize even going into this year that it's like, it is important to keep people updated on the work that's going on, especially, if we're gonna have people donating and have people be a part of the process. It's like, it is important to keep people in the know, and so I've been a lot more cognizant this year with, sharing the work that I'm doing with Climate for Change and, whether it's new grants that we're releasing, new programs that we're doing, new partnerships, and so there's a lot of things on the horizon for 2024 that are kind of floating around. But I think that, as a lot of people know, like when you're doing city work and working with bureaucracy, uh, it's another situation where you can't count those chickens before they hatch. Like you really have to go through the process and all the approvals and all the committees before you can really start announcing things because with a project that you think is going to happen in August really could happen in August of next year or the year after,
Hmm.
And so I will just say the fact that we have a lot of cool things happening. And in the meantime, like we are always offering like the grants that we have, a slew of them, whether it's, our competition climbing grants, our Invention Outside grant, we're always focused on like, helping individuals, organizations, just like get the resources that they need to really expand the community work that's going on in their communities. So, like, always doing something.
Yeah, yeah, so cool. What are you proudest of as far as Climbing for Change goes? Like, what is there a story or a person's life that you've changed, or a gym that you've changed or brought to life, or any one thing that really stands out as like the proudest thing so far?
Oh my gosh. Steven, you just asked me which kid is my favorite. That's not fair.
You're right. You're right. I did. That was a bad question.
I know. I don't know. I feel like it's just so gratifying being able to read the trip reports and the messages that I get from people we've given grants to, or even from people who've been affected by the programs that we've helped others create. Because it's like when I was coming up in the sport, it really just feels like all the stars had to align uh, for everything to work out. Because I mean, my mom was a single parent raising me like on a teacher salary. And it was like, I mean, going into a sport like this, it's expensive, it's not super accessible, it's time consuming. And so, in order for it to work, like, it really took a village, like, so many people at different steps of the way just being willing to give their time. I mean, sometimes money and and energy to really support me in a way that only one person couldn't have done. And so I feel so blessed to be here. It feels like there's a combination of things by chance, along with, of course, hard work and stuff. That if I could build an infrastructure to create that environment for other people, it's that's the goal. And so to see people be affected by that and to be able to enter the sport through that, or see people whose programs like have literally changed their lives. Like we deal with all types of people, veterans, ex felons, like, people who all they're looking for in life is a second chance, and so to be able to create programs that provide that for them and help recenter them and really give them hope in life or even in this industry, it's like, I don't know, it's always just gratifying. Like every story that I read, it makes me smile. It makes it like makes the process worth it. Makes those long unnecessary meetings worth it. And all the work that we do. So,
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, I can't pick one. I can't. Like, I mean, the project that we did in Atlanta was amazing. The grants and the festivals even that we were able to fund. We've funded like Blackout Fest, and we've done work with Rocks Fest and Memphis Rocks. We've just done so many projects, so many people that like, yeah, I can't pick one. You can't force me to do that, Stephen.
I'll lay off. Don't worry. No, that was a beautiful answer. I appreciate just hearing more about the stuff you've done and what it means to you. And yeah, it's so
Before we
cool that you've.
continue, wait.
Yeah.
Before we continue, I have to let you know that my battery is dying, and so I
Okay.
do need to get my charger.
Okay. Go do it. Go do it.
Because that would be a disaster. So give me 1 second. Okay, I think. Wait, hold on. Actually, let me make sure. It's charging. Okay, great. All
Nice.
right, we're good.
Well, man, that is so cool. It's so beautiful to hear how you are paying it forward and passing on what you've been given, giving so many people all the support and opportunities that you've had, and so much more beyond that. How are you getting support for Climbing for Change these days? Is it primarily from donations from people, and can we tell people how to support you guys and where to donate? Are you getting support from brands or anything else, or is it mostly donations?
I mean, it's a piecemeal process. I mean, we do get support from brands. I mean, we have a lot of moniker grants where brands will sponsor certain grants that we offer in order to like fulfill a niche that they want and that we suggest for them. And then we will sometimes have corporate donations, but a lot of it also is those individual donations. Collectively, they make a big difference, and especially since 2020, I think it's been a general consensus in the industry across the board, whether it's for profit or nonprofit, that resources are a bit tight and there's a lot of restructuring going on after COVID. And so it has been a bit harder to get some of those donations that we were getting perhaps in the beginning. And so I think now more than ever, we've been much more reliant on the individual donations to kind of keep the wheels turning and the processes moving. And so, yeah, like we really, really appreciate when people donate because, I mean, the work that we do is not concentrated to any specific community. We do work that structurally increases diversity across the industry from like multiple facets, from multiple approaches, and some of those can be like quite costly. So when we can get those donations through to Climate for Change, like it means a lot to us. So yeah, like I mean, if you want to support, if you want to donate, which we highly appreciate, no amount is too small. You could go to our website, climbing the number 4change.org, and go to our donate page to donate. Also, like we're also on Instagram at climbing the number 4change, and like the link in our bio goes straight to our donation page. Also, I have it in my bio on my Instagram and social media is Kyle Lightner. Because yeah, like I just feel like we do a lot of cool work, and I'm gonna put more effort into showing all of the work that we do this year. But in order for that to be possible, we have to have the funds to really have community impact. So yeah, but any amount helps.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'll put all those links right there in people's podcast app, so you can scroll down, click on the link right there, and donate. Um, that's
I don't
everything
know.
on my
I
list,
was saying,
Kai. What's that?
I'm about to say, I don't know if you want everybody to know this because you are quite like one of our really like good donors, like consistent, great. Like you've given so much money and also like, regard to climate for change. And for that, I say like, thank you. Like having the support and having people like you really believe in the mission and the work that we do at Climate for Change, like it means a lot, because it's one thing to do the work, but it's another to know that it's being appreciated. So
Mm.
thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, man. And that's not just me. That's I don't know if you know this, but that was a really fun collaboration that I did on my Patreon for a long time. There was one of the tiers was if you sign up for $15 a month, then half of it goes to Climbing for Change. So that was actually like a collective from lots of people who support me, who also want to support you. And it's still going. All those people are still supporting every month, which is so awesome. So yeah, it's really cool to see it add up, you know, like, I mean, it's like $7 a month coming from, you know, hundreds of people or whatever, or like dozens of people. And it really adds up to something meaningful. And so, yeah, you're welcome coming from me, but also I want to extend that thank you to all the patrons listening and all the people who've jumped on that and supported you guys. It's very, very cool.
Thank you.
So,
I
yeah,
appreciate that.
we'll keep it going. Anything else? Anything else that you're excited to talk about, or anything else you want to share or let people know about before I let you go?
Um, I don't know. I think I can't think of anything else.
When do you leave for your trip?
I just but say right now I'm just unpacking for my Washington trip. So I'm like doing all my laundry and stuff. So just so I can repack the same suitcase for a month-long trip. So I'm like, you know, I'm always moving.
Those must be very different. I'm imagining your packing list, and they must be very different lists. You've got like your suit and tie for Washington, and then you've got your climbing clothes and everything for your month-long climbing trip.
Yeah. I was so excited. I was like, "Mama, I get to dress up." I never get to dress up. I was like, I put my outfit together and I was like, I had to co-sign it for my friends before I could go in front. It was really cool. But I
Let's talk.
think the coolest thing was the
Let's
fact that
talk
like,
about that real
oh, go ahead.
quick. Yeah, what did you do? So I saw your Instagram thing. You testified in Washington House Committee. What was that for?
Yeah. Because I hadn't done a legislative work like that since I did climb the hill several years ago. But basically, yeah, I was invited out by the Washington Indoor Climbing Coalition to speak on behalf of a bill that would basically help get climbing designated as a sporting, sorry, I guess a sporting. I always mess up this wording. Sporting, like, not arena, but what's it called? Recreation?
I experienced
Something?
firsthand
I have
the
to look
power
at my
that climbing
Instagram to remember the proper wording. But basically, like having climbing be recognized as a sport and having climbing gyms be recognized as a place that hosts sports, that trains sports instead of being amusement. Because I don't think a lot of people even realize the fact that in a lot of states, climbing isn't explicitly taken out of the like amusement section of legislation, and so you would need an amusement permit in order to operate a climbing gym.
Oh wow.
And the liability that that requires, it would, I mean, I feel like a lot of insurance, it would be difficult to get insurance companies to sign along. You know, it leaves you at risk of, I mean, basics that are normal in our sport, like the fact that, like, once you tie onto a rope and you leave the ground, no matter how much knowledge that you're taught, no matter what happens, like, we are no longer in control of what you do. So if something happens from a user error perspective, that is common sense for any average climber, that could lead to litigation because under the law, it's the responsibility of the gym, whereas culturally, it typically wouldn't be. And so, like, it just opened the door for like a lot of things. And I mean, climbing gyms are at the core of the work that we do at Climbing for Change, because as many of us know, as you know, like a lot of the communities of climbing start in gyms. Like climbing is synonymous with community. And so you literally can't grow the sport without having climbing gyms being brought up in different inner city metropolitan areas. And we can't do the efforts that we do at Climbing for Change of creating programs that are accessible for people if they're not in inner cities and aren't allowed to grow. And so it felt like, you know, a responsibility of mine to be able to speak on behalf of my organization and be like, hey, like this work means a lot. And I'm not sure what context the law was written under, but climbing is a lot more than just like some thrill seeking adventure sport. Like it's a sport that combines so many crucial elements to create something that's not only like physical, but like therapeutic. Like and can be just holistically fulfilling for a lot of people. And it's created like job opportunities, like livelihoods, like people really fully immerse themselves in the sport as a lifestyle for a lifetime. So it's like we really have to consider like, putting climbing in the proper category, considering that it's also an Olympic sport.
Yeah,
Like, how can you operate in the Olympics and not be considered a sporting recreation place?
totally.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
So I'm glad that I was able to speak on that.
that's very cool. So I actually just brought up your post. I'm going to read part of it, and people probably heard you talking over yourself because I accidentally forgot to mute your Instagram post as I pulled it up on my computer. But yeah, you wrote, despite being an Olympic sport, current legislation across many states classify climbing gyms as amusement structures opposed to sporting facilities. This classification leaves gyms open to massive lawsuits and a higher level of liability that could be difficult to sustain. So yeah, that's really interesting. Like if you have a weightlifting gym and someone like is trying to bench press more than they can do and they drop the bar on themselves, it makes sense that the gym's not at risk of being shut down or something like that. But yeah, having the amusement structure for climbing gyms makes it seem as though the gym has to protect you and keep you safe no matter what, even though really like the responsibility for that safety, in part at least, is within the climber's hands. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I feel like for a lot of people who don't understand is that this legislation impacts smaller gyms significantly more than even the larger gym chains because, when you're slapped with a cease and desist and told that you can't open your gym until you get an amusement permit, I mean, most smaller gyms just don't have the money set aside to do like large litigation cases.
Mm,
And so they're either forced to close or forced to sell to someone else. And those smaller gyms are really integral to the climbing communities where our sport started. And so we really have to like support that. And so I feel like passing this legislation and making like it like a sweeping designation, it goes a long way in like just saving the culture of our sport at its core. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm proud of being a part of it.
that's awesome. Do you know the status of the bill at this stage? And can we do anything? Like, is there
I
anything we
think
can sign or anything to help
yeah,
support?
I think that's what hurt the most. I think when I was writing this post and I was talking to, the CWA and some other people, I was kind of like, if I post this, the first question everyone's going to ask is, what can we do? And what can we do? And basically the consensus right now is the fact that this movement is so much in its infancy that right now is the main goal is like just creating some form of legislative structure that we know can get passed, that we can start to replicate in other states across the country. Because Washington is one of the first to really push this to getting passed, and I think it's pretty close to a place where it will probably get passed by the the legislature. Knock on wood. But once that happens, and they can handle all the legal wording and matters that are going on, like then we could start calling on people to help and maybe start pushing these initiatives in their own states because it's such a process. The law is complicated and long. So it's like yeah. So you got to do all that bureaucratic work behind the scenes before we can start, creating infrastructures that people can actually get behind the support. So
Hmm.
just like the best advice I can say is like just staying knowledgeable and updated on the things that are going on in your own state. And I put some links in my bio that like bring you to the CWA's website, that brings you to the website of the Washington State Legislature, which like lets you know more about the bill and also its process to getting passed, like, every step of the way. And so that's where I would redirect you if you wanted to learn more and to know more in general.
Okay. Right on, man. You're an inspiring guy, Kai, as always. Really appreciate you for coming back on and chatting with me. It's really good to catch up with you. Congratulations again on Life of Villains. And also, maybe more importantly, on everything that you're doing in this community and the ways in which you're giving back. You're giving back so much more than, yeah. I mean, you're giving back so much more than you need to, And I know that you love it and it's important to you and meaningful to you, but it's difficult work. And yeah, I'm inspired by you. I really appreciate you. Thank you. And best of luck on your project. Can't wait to hear about it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. I like this show.
That means a lot. That means a lot,
Of
man.
course. Of
All
course.
right. What you got in store for the rest of your day?
I'm actually supposed to be going outdoor climbing with Drew in like 3 hours.
With
And
Drew
so
Ruana?
Drew Ruana.
Right
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, he's been trying to get me outdoor bouldering for the longest, and I keep telling him that it's too cold. I was like, it was
Yeah.
literally in the negatives like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, you will not see me outside at all.
Where are
I've
you
never
gonna
seen negative
go?
temperatures before. I don't know. I don't actually know. I think probably near one of Drew's projects. Um, but I also told Drew that I was uninterested in watching him climb like all day and not being able to do anything because I'm like, I'm not trying some V17 project with you. It's not what I'm training for at the moment. I would like something a
Yeah.
little more chiller. And
Yeah.
I will admit that I don't have a ton of confidence in my outdoor bouldering because I just don't do it very often. And so I like to, ease a little. I do it more for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And, following every other move on a V17 is not that fun to me. But he reassured me that wouldn't happen.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm
we'll
sure.
see. I'll keep you updated.
Nice. Yeah. Keep us all updated. Post about it on Instagram. I want to see what you guys end up doing. That'll be fun.
Yeah, it will be fun, hopefully.
Seems like warmer weather. We're through that cold snap. That was crazy. I'm down in Waco right now, so we kind of dodged it. But my girlfriend's in Boulder, and yeah, she was going on a walk one day. It was like a high of 3 degrees outside or something like that. It's just 3 degrees Fahrenheit. Just absolutely crazy. It's way
What's
too cold.
crazy? Like, no, we were going to Fort Collins for like we just wanted to train. A bunch of us went to Ascent. And we were going out there and I was like, wow, like it's bitter. Like I've never felt cold like this. Like it hurts to
Yeah.
breathe a little. And I went
Yeah.
inside to see how cold it was because I just had never experienced anything like that. And it said -5. And I was like, that's not that's not right. So I restarted the app and then I clicked it again, and it said the same thing. I Googled it, got cross-referenced in Google, and it also said -5. And I was like, that's insane. Being from North Carolina, I never thought that I would see negative temperatures in person. So I was like, this isn't meant for me. I'm out of my element.
Your nose hairs are freezing.
Literally, like
Yeah.
I from the walk from the gym to the car, like the boogers in my nose froze.
Totally.
Like that's how cold it was. I was like, wow, that's not okay.
It's not okay. It's too cold. But seems like we're back to normal. So yeah, hopefully you have a good bouldering day with Drew.
I think so. I mean, yeah, I always enjoy Drew's company. We've spent literally our entire lives sitting right next to each other. Whether it was like in the chair for youth nationals or like open nationals or any competition really we were ever in, we were always like, no, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2. And so we spent a lot of time sitting in chairs together. And so we just like built up a rapport that, we're just good friends.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, I'm sure it'll be fun. All right, man. I've got an admin day. I've got a bunch of emails to tackle. I think I'm going to let you go, but I really appreciate you doing this. I'd love to get some photos from you to share with people or to share the episode. I'll be in touch with you about that. I'll just send you a message. But yeah, thank you again. Really good to catch up with you.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always great to catch up with you. Thank you.
Pleasure. All right, man.
All right. See you later.
I'll catch you next time.